Thanks for listening to Live Forever Young Radio. Some of the greatest discoveries and breakthroughs in history have had more to do with luck and necessity rather than a brilliant idea. Such is the case with vitamins and nutrients. On the show today, Bob and Rollie cover the miracle of modern nutrition. From its accidental start in the 1700s as a cure for scurvy, up to today's in-depth studies of human DNA and epigenetics. Learn the benefits for your health that technological breakthroughs in modern-day nutrition have to offer, and why it is now easier than ever to get healthy and provide the fundamental nutrition your body requires to perform at its peak. So sit back, relax, and get ready to live forever young.
Hello and welcome everyone to Live Forever Young Radio. I am Bob and I'm here with Rollie. How you doing today, Rollie?
Good, Bob. How's it going, man?
Great. Awesome, man. This is a great new day.
Yeah, look at our new area
to broadcast from.
It's awesome.
It's really great.
We're going to be making more improvements for now. We've got it set up. We've got a lot more room. Maybe we'll be able to show some people a few more different environments instead of just the wood paneling. But for now, we're going to move forward. And it's going to be fun.
We're going to talk today about the miracle of modern nutrition.
Absolutely.
And this is a very important topic because we'll show you all the discoveries that have happened, recently that have made it very easy now for people to be able to get very accurate amounts of the nutrients that you need in the right ratios, and how it's easy to take it, and that it's now very affordable to really make your body shine and hum like a fine machine.
Absolutely.
With the right nutrition.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's kind of what's happening now. But what we're going to do too is kind of turn back the hands of time and go over some of the historical significant advancements in nutrition, right?
Yeah.
So going back years ago when people were traveling and doing a lot of sailing, you guys have probably heard about scurvy and a lot of soldiers that were getting scurvy, and for a long time they didn't know, what would it cause? It would cause rotten teeth.
Yeah, people's teeth would fall out was the main thing that they noticed, and people would die from scurvy. Mm-hmm. And it was probably close to 300 years ago when it was a ship's surgeon had decided that he was going to try giving these sailors limes to eat on the trip over from, England to the New World, and it worked. They started eating limes on the trip over, and it solved the problem. They didn't get scurvy.
That's weird. So just randomly he chose limes, or did he just have a hunch or something? I
don't know exactly how he discovered it or thought of it, but it's what actually started. They started calling these sailors limeys.
Right.
And still now you have a nickname for people who are British. Some people will call them limeys.
Exactly.
That's where it came from. But it wasn't until the 1920s and the 1930s when they were able to figure out that this was vitamin C that was in the limes. And it was in France where they had created some new technology that allowed them to identify individual bioactive compounds like vitamin C. And so it was then when they're like, okay, that's vitamin C that was helping with the scurvy. And they also discovered vitamin D at the same time, which lack of vitamin D was causing rickets. And so they now knew that it was this particular vitamin and this vitamin, and it was when then they discovered the B vitamins, and they knew, for example, that anemia or low energy was being caused by B12.
Okay, or the lack thereof.
Yeah, lack of B12.
So basically they had the ability in France from technology they created to start identifying, I guess technically, their molecules as different at the time vitamins. Where'd they even come up with the idea of vitamins? I don't, where'd the name come from? We don't know that, but it's just funny, you think there was no such thing as vitamins. And now you have these people that are able to identify molecules. Thank God for the French.
Yeah. And vita, means life.
Oh, there you go. Break it down.
That's where they got that.
Vita means life. I didn't know that.
That first part. And then an amine had another meaning. I forgot what the meaning of that was. But they combined it together and came up with this cool new name, which is so important now today. I mean, they've discovered all the other vitamins, including, all of the vitamin E derivatives, and they've been able to figure out this was a revolution because now they could tell which of these compounds would help with what things. And so it was a form of medicine, if you will, because they didn't have a cure for scurvy that was surgery or a pill. It was part of the diet.
Right. And I think at that point, people really, might have taken note that, hey, diet has a lot to do with health. Maybe before that, they weren't quite as aware. And so, like, in the 40s, you were talking around 1941, these discoveries in the 20s and the 30s led to what we know as RDA, or recommended daily allowances, right?
Yeah, that was a war effort.
Ah,
so the Second World War, and there was a lot of fear around famines because of the war. And so it was then that there was a commission created to begin to really examine how much of these different compounds that had been discovered, the vitamins, minerals, etc., do we actually need.
Gotcha.
And that way it could be more precise. And this led to the fortification of foods. So you would see
vitamin D in the milk.
Yep. And calcium added to cereals and things like that. And so the RDA came about as part of that war effort and still used. A lot of it is still being used today. Some of it's still accurate. It's been adjusted many times since with more research.
Just recently, they upped the amount of vitamin D because they didn't realize how important it was, not only for bone health, because that's one of the main things vitamin D does, but for genetic expression.
Yeah.
Your vitamin D actually, Bob always talks about it, your vitamin D is what unlocks the protective sheath on the DNA.
Yeah.
Right? Which actually, I think that's probably why they come to the next discovery in the 50s, which was replicating DNA, right?
Right. Yeah. So people could observe for a long time that there was something that was, part of the human body that was genetic, because it was easy to see because, a child would be born and he looked like the mom and the dad, and they knew it was being passed down, but they didn't really know exactly how. Right. But in the 50s, they figured out how DNA was dividing and replicating itself, and that led later on in many decades later when they initiated the Human Genome Project, and they wanted to try to figure out the entirety of the human genome.
I think they're still working on it.
Yeah, and they also discovered at that time, during that multi-year project, that's when they really began to understand the importance of epigenetics, which is the terrain that the genome is in and what's influencing it. And that gave rise to lots of other research, including later when Dr. Bruce Lipton, wrote the book, The Biology of Belief, and he was able to show how your own thoughts were actually affecting your genetic expression.
So epigenetics, basically the study of the environment that the genes or genetics take place in or are fostered in.
The effect of the environment, including your thoughts, your diet,
bacteria,
toxins, etc. Yep.
Okay.
And what the totality of that terrain, so to speak. And there's numerous physicians that have written books about the importance of the terrain to your health, because one person can experience the same assault, whether it's a bacteria or something else, and another person experiences the exact same thing. One of them gets symptoms of illness and the other doesn't. So what's the difference?
Yeah,
basically what we're talking about.
We were just talking about that concept in our last podcast, or our podcast before last, about why winter weakens the immune system.
Yeah.
And so, like, a lot of these, these watershed discoveries in the history of modern nutrition, the scurvy, figuring out the vitamin C, leading to the vitamins in the 20s and the 30s, leading to the recommended daily allowances for the war effort, leading to the discovery of replicating DNA, and then the human genome process. Those are all major benchmarks in nutrition that got us to where we are now. And there's quite a bit of things that has recently happened that they've discovered.
Yeah, there's, the discovery that we have an entire ecosystem of microorganisms, bacteria and viruses and funguses and other small microorganisms that are actually part of the totality of a human. So you can identify a human cell. It has characteristics and it has human DNA, right? But without the rest of the life forms that are on our bodies, on our skin, are inside our bodies, you wouldn't really have a being that would look like us. So we're designed genetically to live as a co-host. So our body, which most people see our body and they're seeing our skin and the clothes we wear, maybe they're seeing our eyes and our teeth.
Right.
And that's what we see, but in actuality, we're this massive collective of trillions of bacteria, trillions of human cells, trillions of fungal cells that are all working together symbiotically. And so that discovery of the microbiome, is the totality of the genomes of all of these microorganisms that are in and on us.
Wow.
And we actually, if you look at the total number of human cells, best estimates around 37 trillion. That's about 1/10 of the totality of the cells that our shell encompasses.
So yeah, I think you said it before. We're only like 1/10 human. The rest is all bacteria and other stuff that kind of. Yeah. It's kind of like the bird that sits on the rhino's back and picks the whatever vermin, or not the vermin, but the ticks, the bloodsuckers, the anything that's on the rhino. It's a symbiotic relationship. So your body's kind of living in this homeostasis of all these things. It's kind of crazy when you think about it.
Yeah, and so a human being has human cells. And it has many, many different types of microorganisms that have their own DNA, right? And then together, this presents something that looks like us, that looks like a human being. And our consciousness also is dependent on those microorganisms. Our consciousness is partly a result of neurotransmission with, chemical compounds in your brain moving from one place to another, from one part of the brain to the other, from one cell to another, from supply cells to receptor cells.
Right.
And those are dependent, the creation of those neurotransmitters like serotonin are dependent upon your microbiome,
right,
producing metabolites, which lead to the creation of things like serotonin.
So, because I was just to say the reason why that's dependent on your microbiome, and most people don't know, is that the neurotransmitters are manufactured in the gut.
Yeah.
Right. And so if you're probiotics, if you're if you're not using probiotics, you might have an imbalance of bad bacteria, especially with all the sugars and stuff that people eat, and those sugars can lead to bad bacteria. Whereas you want to have stuff that's like undigestible fibers so that the good probiotics can live, and you want to make sure that you eat stuff that doesn't foster or fester really bad bacteria in the gut, because when you make those neurotransmitters, they get transferred to the head or the brain where they try to be used, but if they're not made correctly, they don't function properly.
Yeah, and it even starts before that in your mouth.
Right.
So a recent discovery that some scientists made was about the specific types of good bacteria that you can put into your mouth that kill the bad bacteria in your mouth, and they're finding that it's getting rid of people's sinus problems with breathing, that it all originated from bacteria in your mouth.
That's interesting. That's interesting because you don't really think about your mouth being like that, but that's where digestion starts. That's right where it starts.
The other thing is, the discovery of amino acids, which are the building blocks of proteins, and our bodies are protein-making machines, and they make them with the use of amino acids. and there's numerous types of amino acids, some of which your own body can make and some that you have to take in by mouth. So this was a big discovery, knowing which amino acids we actually need to consume. And some we make, but we make less of them as we age, and so it's good to take in the ones even that we do make. It's good to take those in too.
Yeah, you kind of read my mind on to say as you get older, you don't create as much. So things like, not only protein, but collagen's a good thing too. Collagen is very good for helping with amino acid rebuilding. And in our barley, we have tons of amazing amino acids from the sprouting process. And then one of the things that kind of goes hand in hand, right, with that would be metabolites.
Metabolites and metabolic enzymes. So the discovery of enzymes,
right,
back in the early 1900s was also a revolution. Enzymes can do many, many different things, but they're crucial for the human body because the metabolic enzymes act like a glue. So they'll grab this amino acid, and arrange them in just the right way and donate an electron to bond them together. And this is how proteins get created.
Right.
And so the metabolites, a metabolite is basically a chemical compound that gets created when two other things come together or when one thing gets digested or torn apart. So you can have upstream and downstream metabolites.
Gotcha.
And a lot of metabolites are created in your gut, in your large intestine, where those bacteria we talked about are interfacing with fiber, and they're fermenting the fiber, and in that process, these metabolites get created. So these are all discoveries that came along with the discovery of vitamins, and it's very important to know about those. Also, the discovery of antioxidants, which is what slows our rate of aging, the discovery of polyphenols, which are compounds in plants and that are different than vitamins. And all of these discoveries lead us to understanding what it is that we take in by mouth, how it affects the major mechanisms of the human body, like our digestion and the absorption of nutrients.
Well, with the antioxidants, you detoxify, right? You get the detoxification effects of those things, and then, in compounds like L-arginine, and phosphatidylcholine,
with help with your circulation,
increase circulation, so that way, if you have blood pressure problems or anything like that, it can help to really regulate that out naturally. And like a lot of those, like we said, those discoveries were just something that we just learned about. Because, like you'd said, polyphenols, which again are from plants, they're not necessarily vitamins, but they're another beneficial compound that, when converted into human form, once we eat them,
things like resveratrol and curcumin, and they have an effect on your genome. They're part of the process of that epigenome. And so we know certain specific compounds that are in a specific plant that will activate a very specific part of the genome. And so that becomes important because we can now say, hey, if you take this pill or this powder that has this in it, this is likely what's going to happen in your genome.
You'll increase your energy. You'll create ATP. There's all these good effects that these discoveries have actually brought about for not just health, but in general. And, when you go over, you think about digesting better, absorbing these things better, your circulation working better.
Your mental health.
Yes. And you're basically, what you're doing is you're giving your body the ability to repair faster than it can burn up, which is what we talk about all the time. And how can you do it? Well, it's more accurate now, right? The modern technology has made the ratios, like with the RDA, you can actually figure out how much of this you're taking, right?
Yeah, how much of each thing, and not only that, but how does each interact with the other?
Right.
So we know that, like, for example, iron is very important for the human body. You're going to be really, really tired if you have too little. And you're going to also be tired if you have too much.
Right.
And you need vitamin C to help absorb iron. And so how much of each? How much iron do you need? How much vitamin C do you need to help absorb the iron? So all of these factors can now be considered when you make a formulation as a nutrition company like we are. When we created the Total Health System, it was taking into consideration all these things that we're discussing today.
Right.
And we're aware of the discoveries, and we're also, aware of the other companies that can help us to put together things just the right way.
Right.
So it's very easy to do.
Right. And it's one of the good things is instead of spending hundreds of bottles on this pill or that pill or this pill or that pill, we've taken the time and the effort to make the health system that gives them all to you. It's what is it? It's 3 powders and 4 pills a day.
Yeah.
And that's literally what you need. Everybody needs. Everybody needs
it's
these fundamental nutrients.
There's about 4,000 compounds in the Total Health System.
Right.
And it's now easily affordable, and it only takes a couple of minutes in the morning to do it. And this is where we stand here in 2022 with all the information going all the way back to the 1920s and coming up to the modern day. Now, every single day, there's at least 200 new scientific papers published just on vitamin D.
Right.
So imagine, what's happened between 2022 and the 1920s.
Right.
All this information. And so we've been able to, for the last 10 years, with the knowledge that was available then, and we've made modifications as we go.
Right.
We're able to say, okay, with all that knowledge that's out there, what do we do so that a person can call us on the phone, hit our website, and get this easy-to-use Total Health System, and they don't have to become a PhD in nutrition science
Right.
and shop in 19 different places to try to piece together all of these compounds in one package. And
right.
That's what we've done for people.
One of the hardest parts of, getting started on supplements is like knowing where to begin, right? You can get kind of intimidated. You walk down the aisle and there's all these bottles and this says this does that and this does that. But really, like we say, it comes down to fundamental nutrition, regardless of your age, race, gender, a body needs certain things. And by getting this foundation, then you can actually build your health upon it. And any specific health goal that you're having an issue with, you can address a lot quicker. A lot of the times you get your basic nutrients replenished, you start repairing, a lot of those things start to go away. If that doesn't work, then there's other things like, there's ashwagandha to help with stress. We have our good night formula, which is actually one of the things we created with all this knowledge.
Yep.
We found all the information on what helps your body go into progressive relaxation. Yep. We found all the nutrients and vitamins that you have to combine with the natural compounds like melatonin and all those sleep-inducing compounds. So that way you don't have to rely on something like Benadryl and wake up groggy. Yep. You've had Benadryl forever. Now you can actually look and say, well, here's something natural combined with nutrients that'll actually, really work, as opposed to, having to try to knock you out with a sleeping pill.
Yeah.
So
you have to drink a lot of coffee to try to wake up in the morning.
Right.
And so, I think that this is, I think in 2023, we'll see even more discoveries, just like we had in 2022 with the discovery of the combination of the probiotics that are now helping people with sinus conditions.
Right.
There'll be a lot more of that to come. But in the meantime, I think that's about it for us for today. So
we'll keep you posted as things get discovered. I can't wait to see what the next 100 years is going to bring up, and I'm gonna be here for it. You read my mind. Anyway, that's it. That's all I got, Bob. This was a good show. I really like the new digs. If you guys want to check out all our old shows, go to boomerboost.com or liveforeveryoungradio.com. We've got 60. This is our 67th show we're recording right now, so go check out the other 66. It covers many topics, from nutrition to mental health to stress and anxiety. So check it out.
Rollie, just regarding that, I was speaking to a man yesterday on the phone, and he needed a lot of help. And as I listened to him and took some notes, I was like, we have a podcast where he could learn about that,
right,
and that and that. And I ended up telling him 4 different podcasts. I opened up my computer screen and looked at all the list of them. I'm like, okay, in the 3rd row down over on the right, there's this podcast that you're going to need, and then this one goes with that, and then you're going to need to, in regard to the nutrients you're going to take, here's 2 podcasts on that. And so he's like, this is great. I'll have all the information I need. And once he gets in there, he'll find other things that pertain to him as he looks around. So
yeah, we're not just making podcasts. We're helping you discover the miracles of modern nutrition in these podcasts too. So tune in, get educated, and enjoy.
Yeah, and thanks, Rollie,
absolutely,
for being here, and thank you everyone for watching and listening to Live Forever Young Radio. We'll see you on the next show.
Thanks for listening to Live Forever Young Radio. Check us out at liveforeveryoungradio.com.